Hey, mamas, welcome back to Conquering Chaos, a mom's guide to self-care insanity. I'm your host, Sydney Crow, and today we have Robin Reynolds. Robin founded her company in 2008, although she's been organizing since she was a child. She is a certified professional organizer and a longtime member of NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. She's played an integral role in the NAPO Los Angeles chapter as a volunteer and board member and as co-chair of the 2012 Organizing Awards, and was recently appointed the president of BCPO, which is the Board of Certified Professional Organizers, for the term of the 2022 and to 2024. In addition to being quoted in the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, Real Simple Magazine, Today.com, Yahoo.com, Women's Day Magazine, and numerous other publications, Robin has also worked in a television show, Hoarders, and is a published author of A to Zen, 26 Tips to Inspire Organization. Her clients include everyone from the stay-at-home moms to busy executives to A-list celebrities. Her business has been built solely on referrals. She has been involved with numerous different local charities that are all close to her heart, including Dress for Success, Souls for Souls, One Warm Coat, and Kids Save. When Robin is not organizing and harmonizing her clients, she is spending time with her teenage daughter, whom she treasures and leads a healthy lifestyle. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. That was a mouthful.
It was a bit of a mouthful. I apologize for getting a little tongue-tied there,
Oh,
but
that's
wow,
okay. It's like there's so much stuff. Maybe I need to shorten that.
you have quite the resume. I am very impressed. So tell me a little bit about your business. What got you started in the organizing business?
Well, it was something, like I said, that I've always done, and I never knew it was actually a profession. And then one day I was reading a magazine and I came across a mention about NAPO. And I started looking at it. I was like, oh my God, this is something I could do for a living. Like, I was so thrilled that something that I just enjoyed doing was something that I can make a career out of. So I immediately went and joined the organization. Had no idea how to start a business. I had been an employee my entire life and kind of trial and error figured out how to start a business. And here we are all these many years later.
That's incredible. I mean, and isn't that the goal for everybody, to find something that you love doing so that you never feel
Yes.
like you work a day in your life?
Yes,
I
definitely.
mean, well, congratulations on that. That is quite a
Thank you.
very long resume. What would you say your favorite project was?
Well, I love doing closet design. That's
Okay.
one thing that I love doing because gives me my creative outlet also in a different kind of way. But and I like, as weird as it might sound, I like home cleanouts where basically I just have to pack up everything and get it wherever it needs to go, whether it's donated or things that are going to be sold or whatever. But I just like that. Maybe because I can just move a lot faster with that because I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily working one-on-one with clients. But then the enjoyment also comes from doing something with a client that they never thought of, that I think is the simplest change, and I've completely rocked their world. It's like I invented sliced bread or something. But they just don't think about it because everybody thinks differently. Everybody's brain is wired differently, but
Yeah, and
sometimes it makes a huge difference for someone else.
it really can. I mean, I've had my own mental blocks around organization, whether, I mean, you and I were having conversations about the digital world and organization prior to
Uh-huh.
us getting on this call, or my home. And then somebody will say something or you'll see something and you're like, why didn't I think of that? That's like the simplest thing, the
Right.
simplest transformation. And you're like, this just made the world of difference. And you talked
Absolutely.
a lot about like not only the clutter in the house, but the clutter in the mind. And I can really relate to that. So when it comes to working with your clients, especially being on the show Hoarders, do you feel like a lot of what you are working with in somebody's home is a mental game?
A lot of it is because there's a lot of mental, I mean, just the work of organizing. I always say it's more than putting a square peg in a round hole because there is a huge psychological component to every part of it. And
Yeah.
mostly to the reasons that people want to hold on to things, because we hold on to things way more than we need to, or necessarily this stuff isn't necessarily serving a purpose. It's just that we have emotional attachments to it, maybe sentimental, or it was expensive, or it was this, or is that. The reasons that people give are endless as to why they hold on to stuff. So
Yeah.
it really is, so much more. And I forgot your question at this point. What did you say? There was a point I was getting to, and then I forgot.
Just the emotional or like
Yes,
the mental like
the
clutter
mental.
that yeah, the mental piece of it. Like, do you feel like that's the biggest obstacle that you face?
I don't know if it's the biggest obstacle, but it is because when you say mental, it could be two different things. It could be mental in the sentimental way, or it could be mental in how your brain is wired.
Okay.
Because organization really is how your brain is wired. Why some people are good at it and some people aren't, because everybody has their strengths. As I said to you earlier, don't talk to me about technology because my brain isn't wired for that. I don't care how many times you explain it to me, I'm just not going to get it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with organization. But you can also learn when you have systems that are set up the right way, you can learn to follow the systems to stay organized. And that's what we do is we set up systems for someone in order to help them to get and stay organized. It's not just like, okay, because people like, well, do I have to be there? Or, how much of my time do you need? And I'm kind of like, well, all of your time or most of your time, because I can't just make decisions about your stuff. One, I can't make decisions on what you want to keep and what goes. And even if you may not be there the entire time, I have to walk you through what is done afterwards so that this is the system for this and this is how you're going to continue to do this. Because as I joke, I don't live with you, so I can't keep this up for you. Like you have to make the effort to do it yourself.
Yeah, and it really does come down to the system. I mean, my daughter has ADHD, and a common trait for people with ADHD is they just don't have that organization component in their
No.
brain. And it doesn't matter how many times I walk her through the system, it still is a struggle. It's still the one thing on her report card that's like, oh, she needs better organization. We're like, we're working on it. It might be something that we're going to work on for the rest of her life,
And
and
it will
that's
be.
just the pay, like the piece of it, right? And so I completely understand how certain brains are wired for it and not. So when it comes to the systems that you're putting into place for people, do you find that people are able to keep them up, or do you have a lot of repeat clients?
It depends. There are some people that are able to maintain it once it's completely set up. But then
Okay.
there are people that, we do see on a regular basis that what I call maintenance, that we may set up the whole, they may not have anything in place. And then we set up a whole system for everything. And they're able to maintain it for a little while, but then it might get a little derailed because life got busy or something happened in their world. And then we'll have to go back and kind of do a touch up. But
Okay.
when it really depends on the client too and how much effort they're willing to put into it, because again, they have to maintain it.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter what's done. If they're not going to maintain it, then it kind of makes it, it's not going to work at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like I always equate everything to dieting. It's like, yeah, you can lose 50 pounds, but if you're going to go back and eat bonbons on the couch every day, guess what? Those 50 pounds are coming back.
Yes, they will.
You have to
Absolutely.
change your habits. So
Yeah. And so do you would you classify yourself as like a habit changer then?
I've been called many things, but that's not one of them. But I guess
Okay.
that could be.
I
That
like
could
it.
be.
I mean, a lot of what you're seeing in the mental wellness space now and personal development is like habit changing, right? It really
Right.
comes down to being effective with your habits, being like intentional with your time. And like you just said, if you're not going to do the work and maintain it, then it just kind of keeps falling off or the pounds
Right.
keep coming back. So it's really interesting to me what you do. I mean, I've always been drawn to this industry like you as a young person. I was always watching like those fixer-upper shows. I've watched Hoarders a few times, so it's interesting to me that you've been on those shows. When it comes to motherhood, what would you say the biggest piece for moms is what that you're working with or that you see in terms of clutter and organization in the home?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think, one, everybody feels that they need to be perfect when they're a mom, and there's no such thing as perfect. So it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, I do it with my daughter. I feel like every day I make a mistake. I mean, she's in college at this point. So like whatever I've done, oh well, it's it's done is done.
What's done is done.
Exactly. But, give yourself grace because no one's perfect. And every day I'm like, damn, I messed that up and I messed that up and I messed that up. And then I just pray that it's not going to cause her too much angst, or that she's not going to be in therapy too long or,
Yeah.
Whatever. Because it's hard. Motherhood is hard. Like raising kids is hard.
Yep.
And
Responsibility for another life.
yeah, yeah. So, but in addition to that, we bring, as I briefly mentioned before, we get so much stuff and we indulge, or so many people indulge their kids with so much stuff. And I think personally, I think it's a bad precedent to start because, yeah, it may be a toy now, but eventually it's going to be designer clothes, designer purses, car, whatever. So I think the biggest thing is learning to say no. Like you'll have to deal with the tantrum. You'll have to deal with the this, that, or the other thing. But, you have to teach them that one, they can't have everything they want because that's not real life. Like we all want stuff that we can't have. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I want a Lamborghini. Well, guess what? It's going to have to wait. And I'll probably never have a Lamborghini. I don't really want one, but, you know,
Fair. Yeah.
but it's just stop bringing so much stuff in and then you won't have to deal with so much. Because
Mhm.
I go into homes sometimes with one child and they practically have a toy store.
Wow.
And, and the kid could be not even 5 years old yet. And it's just, it amazes me how much. And I know a lot of it, I'll always hear, well, it's my mother-in-law, or it's the, for birthdays and this, that, and the other thing. You know what? Then instead talk to, family about giving either an experience with the child, because that's what to remember. Like, do you remember what you got somebody gave you for your fifth birthday? Absolutely not.
No.
But I
No.
remember, you know what? I went so and so with my grandmother and we went to the mall and we did this and we had ice cream or whatever it was. Like I remember the things that we did. I
Yeah.
don't remember the things that I got.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. Like my husband and I have been on the experience train for a while where, we'd rather do a family vacation and take the kids somewhere special.
Mhm.
Or, even my mom this year for Christmas, she was like, what should I get the kids? And I was like, just an activity, go do something with them. So we have an indoor
Yeah.
skydiving activity that we're going to go do with my kids. And I'm like, this is way better. Like they're going to remember stuff like that.
Yes.
And it got to the point where like my kids are now almost 9 and 11. But my husband and I both come from divorced families. And so it was almost like we would do 4 Christmases, 4 sets of birthdays, for this, for that. And it was just like, we'd come home with all this stuff and we're like, this is great. Like my kids feels like special because they got all of these presents in that moment. But then at the end of the day, it's like they either break or we're selling them in a garage sale in a couple of years, or we're
Or
passing them
they
down to the
lose
neighbors.
interest. They lose interest very quickly. Kids are
Yeah,
very fickle. They'll play with
exactly.
something if you're lucky for 2 weeks and then they're on to the next thing.
Exactly. So I'm a big believer in that. So, I mean, when it comes to motherhood, giving yourself grace, saying no, learning how to say no, and basically setting those boundaries around what's coming into your home in the first place.
Right.
Those would be your top 3 pieces of advice for them.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I say is, especially when it comes to family, if you're going to spend $20 on a toy, guess what? Put that $20 into 529 for college,
Yeah.
because it's crazy. When my daughter was born, somebody told me at that time that college was going to be about $250,000 for 4 years of school. And it sounded ridiculous. Guess what? It's not so ridiculous, because a private university these days is about 70 to $80,000 per year. So, in another 10 years when your kids are in school, or another however much, I mean, it is insane. So that $20 here, that $20 there, from all those different family members, that'll add up
Yeah.
and it'll make a big dent, or at
Yeah.
least help.
I think it's so great. And I mean, we're teaching our kids a little bit about money. So every time they're gifted a certain dollar amount, we put half of it into savings and then half of it into a spend jar, and they're able to spend that. And the other half goes into their bank account. I'm like, you might want this money now, but trust me, when you turn 16 and can buy your own car, you're going to feel so good with this money. So they're
Exactly.
like, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate it now. We understand. So sometimes we'll like dream up, look at cars because they talk about wanting convertibles, and we live up in the mountains in Alberta. So I'm like, you'll have a convertible for 2 months of the year. Like, you don't want a convertible up here. We need to move down where Robin is in Southern California. Then you can have a then you can have a
Well, it's funny
convertible.
because I'm from New York and I had gotten a convertible when, I don't know, whatever time of year it was, but it was a warmer day in New York. Let's say it was 60 or something,
Yeah.
and it was the winter time. And I was like, I had that top down with my scarf and gloves.
And the heater cranked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just that
That's
one
so
day, I was
fun.
like, I just want my top down for today.
Exactly.
But I froze, yes.
Yeah, fair enough, right? So it's amazing. I love the tips that you have for moms. Now, you were telling me about your 10 ways to manage the clutter. I don't know why that word is getting me tongue-tied on this
Yeah.
podcast here today. Sorry, folks. 10 ways to manage the clutter in our heads. So can you tell the audience a little bit about that? We're going to drop a link for this in the show notes, guys, but just so that you know what this is all about.
I mean, basically, it is it is exactly what it says. It's just a way because life is so busy. We're always thinking about a million things. We don't take the time for ourselves as mom to do anything a lot of times for ourselves. And, it's kind of like when they say on a plane, you have to put on your oxygen mask first before you can help anyone else. Because if you pass out, you're not helpful to anyone else.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. It's just different ways that you can kind of give yourself a reset or a chance to breathe. I think actually breathing is one of them, if I remember correctly, because we don't breathe. Even if it's just a 5 minute, reset, let me sit, take 5 minutes, breathe or step away from the chaos and just breathe, then you'll feel so much better. And then, a lot of other things also. But just to kind of give ourselves that little bit of grace to be able, and that little bit of boost, that extra energy to keep going, especially if you
Yeah.
have a large family, if you're a single parent, whatever. There's a lot of reasons why people work two jobs and they're still parenting,
All the
it's
time.
endless.
It really is. Yeah. And I feel like moms, especially, we carry a lot of that burden of home life. Like, even if you have
Yes.
a supportive partner or husband or spouse, moms tend to really carry that, like, the list of all the things that have to happen,
Yes.
right? Like, it's the volunteering in the school if they can, it's the field trip information, it's the lunch and the groceries and all the things. And so to be able to take that pause and have those moments to, it's not so much self-care, but just to support yourself so that you can
Hmm.
show up for yourself and your kids in the best way. That's really amazing. So we're going to make sure that we put that in the show notes, you guys. Robin also has a course called the Ultimate Home Organization Program. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I created a program because obviously I can't work with everyone in the world. But although I might like to. And, I do see clients virtually, but I do see clients also obviously in person. But the thing is not everyone can afford to hire an organizer. So this is a cost-effective way for them to be able to get the benefits and the wisdom of a certified professional organizer and be able to do it on their own. And I go into, a lot of the detail of why we do things the way that we do. Like the first module is probably the most important because that's trying to get to understand the habits that you have and why things happen. And then the rest of it is organizing pretty much every single, decluttering and organizing every single area in your home, from the kitchen to the office to the garage to the playroom, the kids' rooms, everything, the bathrooms, you name it, it's in there.
I love that, and so helpful. And like you said, I mean, you probably have a bit of a team, but you're one person, one
Right.
organization, so you can't work with everybody. So this is a great way for, if you guys are out there just kind of staring at a bit of clutter, wondering where to even start, this would be a great first step in terms of getting the ball rolling if you are not near Robin or able to afford those full services to have somebody come in and do it for you. So
Yeah. Because there
really,
are organizers everywhere, but it isn't, it's you get what you pay for. Not going to say that you can't find people in all different, because obviously what I charged when I first started is very different than what I charge now. But
yeah,
it's also based on your experience and your knowledge, really.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like anything, right? The longer you work at a job,
Yes.
the more experience you have, hopefully, the higher paid you are in that industry. So
Yeah.
I won't say it's a blanket the way that it is all the way,
No.
always, but you would think that that's, the right way to do things. So,
Right.
Robin, is there any last piece of advice or information that you'd like to give the listeners today?
What would I like to, if you're going to start the organizing or decluttering journey yourself, the only thing I would say is that remember that it didn't happen overnight. It kind of crept up, just like you don't gain 50 pounds overnight. So when you're doing the process, whether it's with my course or by yourself, just do it in little pieces. Start in one little area. The only thing I will say is finish that one room before you go on to somewhere else, because when you see the progress, you'll feel more motivated to keep going into other areas. So whether it's a corner, whether it's a tabletop, whether it's a closet, finish that one area, then go on to something else, and you'll start feeling that you're making actually some progress and an accomplishment, and pat yourself on the back and reward yourself for, like, yes, I did it. I finally did it.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, everybody needs to celebrate those small wins, right? No matter how big or
Absolutely.
small they might seem from the outside, if it feels like you've accomplished something, I'm a strong believer in celebrating all your wins. So
Yes.
I really appreciate you being on the show today, Robin.
Sure.
Thank you guys for tuning into today's episode where we help you conquer the chaos one day at a time.